You think you know someone. You trust them with the most important thing in your life. For me, that was my dog, Bailey. A golden retriever with the kind of eyes that could fix a bad day in about 3 seconds. I had to go on a work trip for 5 days. It wasn't a vacation. It was a huge project that could have meant a big promotion. The only problem was finding someone to watch Bailey. My mum had always tolerated him. She'd make comments. You spend more on his food than your own, or it's just a dog, you know, you're a little obsessed. But I never ever thought it was anything more than just complaining. She was my mum, so I dropped Bailey off with a giant bag of his food, his favourite toys, his bed, and 3 pages of instructions. She smiled and said, "Don't worry, we'll be fine." And I believed her. The trip was exhausting. 12-hour days, constant stress. The only thing keeping me going was the FaceTime calls with my mum to see Bailey. "Well, the first 2 days," she answered. He looked happy, wagging his tail. On day 3, she didn't answer. She texted, "So busy, sorry, he's fine, eating and everything." I felt a little twist of worry, but I pushed it down. Day 4, nothing. Day 5, my flight home, I was texting her my arrival time, asking how my boy was. Radio silence. The entire flight, my stomach was in knots. I told myself I was being paranoid. She was just busy. Maybe her phone died. I landed, got my bag, and drove straight to her house. I was buzzing with excitement to see Bailey. I walked in, calling his name. Nothing. No pitter-patter of paws on the hardwood floor, no happy bark. The house was silent. My mum was in the kitchen washing dishes. She didn't even turn around. "Mum, where's Bailey?" She slowly turned off the water and dried her hands, taking way too long. She finally looked at me, and her face was this weird, flat mask. "I'm so sorry, honey. He got out. The back gate was open. I don't know how. I was bringing in groceries. He just bolted. I've been looking for him for 2 days." My whole world just dropped out from under me. Got out? Bailey? Bailey who's scared of his own shadow? Bailey who never goes further than the backyard? It didn't make any sense. I was crying immediately, hysterical. "What do you mean he got out? Where did you look? Did you put up posters? Call the shelters?" She just kept repeating the same story, calm as anything. I looked everywhere. I called a few places. Nothing. "I didn't want to worry you while you were working." That's when the first little seed of doubt popped into my head. She didn't want to worry me, so she just didn't tell me my dog was missing for 2 days. That was the opposite of not worrying me. I left her house in a complete daze. The next 48 hours were a blur of pure, frantic energy. I didn't sleep. I made hundreds of flyers and posted them all over our town and the next one over. I called every vet, every shelter, every animal control office within a 50-mile radius. I spent hours walking through neighborhoods, shaking a tub of his favorite treats, calling his name until my voice was hoarse. I was running on fumes, just pure fear and adrenaline. My mum would call, asking if I'd found him, and her voice just sounded empty. There was no emotion, no shared panic. It was like she was asking if I'd found a lost sock. On the 3rd day of searching, I called a shelter in a town about 45 minutes away, a place I hadn't tried yet because it was so far. I gave my spiel, my voice cracking. "Hi, I'm looking for a missing golden retriever, male, answers to Bailey. He's microchipped." The woman on the phone cut me off. "Bailey? Microchip number ending in 7814. My heart just stopped. It felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. "Yes, that's him. You have him?" she said. "We did. A woman brought him in last week, said she found him as a stray. But he was scanned, we got your info, and we tried calling the number on the microchip, but it went straight to voicemail. I was on that work trip, my phone was in and out of service in the big conference centre buildings. She must have called when I couldn't receive it." Is he okay?" I asked, terrified of the answer. "Oh, he's perfectly fine," the woman said, her voice much warmer now. "He's a sweetheart. We've got him right here. He's ready to be picked up." I burst into tears, but this time they were tears of the most incredible, soul-crushing relief. I was so happy I couldn't even speak. I just cried into the phone. Then what she said earlier finally clicked in my brain. "Wait, you said a woman brought him in? What did she look like?" The shelter worker thought for a moment. Older lady, maybe in her 60s, short, dark hair. She seemed impatient. Just wanted to drop him off and leave, didn't ask any questions about what would happen to him. A cold, hard stone settled in my gut. She was describing my mother. My own mother didn't just let him run away, she drove him to a shelter in another town and dumped him there. She lied to my face for days while I was falling apart. The relief I felt was instantly drowned out by a wave of betrayal so deep and so cold I felt physically sick. I thanked the woman, told her I was on my way, and hung up. The drive to that shelter was the longest of my life. My mind was racing. All the pieces fit together now. The lack of FaceTime calls, the calm lie, the fact that she never seemed truly upset. She had gotten rid of him on purpose. She saw him as a problem to be solved, and she solved it. I picked up Bailey. The moment he saw me, he went crazy, whining, tail wagging so hard his whole body wiggled. He was safe. He was okay. I held him and sobbed into his fur, promising I would never, ever let anything happen to him again. On the drive home, with Bailey snoozing happily in the back seat, a plan started to form in my mind. It wasn't enough to just have him back. What she did was cruel. It was calculated. If I just showed up with him, she would make up some excuse. She'd say he found his way home, or that it was all a big misunderstanding. She would never, ever admit what she did. I needed her to admit it. I needed proof, so I decided to pretend that Bailey was still lost. I took him to my best friend's house and explained everything. My friend was horrified and, of course, said Bailey could stay as long as needed. I went back to my own empty, quiet apartment. I called my mom. I put on the performance of my life. I sounded broken, defeated. I told her, "Mum, I think I have to give up. I can't find him. He's just gone." And on the other end of the line, I heard it. I heard the slightest hint of a satisfied sigh. She said, "Oh, honey, it's for the best. You know, you were too attached to that dog anyway. It wasn't healthy. You can finally focus on your career, your life. You'll see, this is a blessing in disguise." Every word felt like a tiny knife. I just stayed quiet, letting her talk. For the next week, I played the part of the grieving dog owner. I'd visit my mum, my eyes red from pretending to cry. I'd talk about how empty my apartment felt, and she started to get comfortable. She started to let her guard down. She'd make little comments. "The apartment must be so much cleaner without all that hair." Or, "You're saving so much money now on dog food." It was all I could do not to scream at her, but I waited. I needed the big one, the confession. It happened on a Sunday. I was over at her house for a family dinner, just the two of us. I was pushing my food around my plate, looking miserable. She was going on about some drama with one of her friends in her book club. And then she said it. She was trying to make me feel better, in her own twisted way. She put her hand on mine and said, "Look, I know you're sad about the dog, but you have to understand as a mother, I had to do something. I saw what it was doing to you, that obsession. It wasn't easy for me, you know, driving all the way out to that shelter in Rockville, dealing with the paperwork. It was stressful. But I did it for you. I solved the dog problem so you could have your life back." There it was, clear as day. I didn't even have to prompt her. She was so proud of herself, so convinced of her own righteousness, that she just laid it all out. And in my pocket, my phone was recording the entire conversation. I had started the audio recording the moment I sat down at the table. I looked at her. All the fake sadness drained from my face. I just looked at her, calm and steady. "What did you just say?" I asked, my voice quiet. She blinked, a little confused by my shift in tone. "I said I solved the problem. For you." I pulled out my phone, stopped the recording and held it up. "You didn't solve a problem, Mum. You committed a crime. You abandoned my family member, and you just confessed to it. On record." The colour drained from her face. It was a beautiful, terrifying thing to watch. The realization, the shock, the slow dawning horror. "You... what? What are you doing?" she stammered. I stood up. "Bailey isn't lost. I picked him up from the shelter in Rockville the day after you told me your little story about the gate. He's been safe and sound at Sarah's house this whole time. I was just waiting for you to tell me the truth. And you finally did." She started yelling, of course. She called me manipulative, deceitful, that I'd set a trap for my own mother, and I just let her. I didn't argue. I had what I needed. I walked out of her house, and I haven't spoken to her since. But I wasn't done. She thought the consequences were going to be me being angry at her, That was it. But what she did was so much bigger than a family argument. It was a profound act of cruelty. So I wrote down the whole story. Every detail. From the moment I dropped Bailey off to the moment I recorded her confession. I didn't editorialize it. I just told it straight, and I posted it. I posted it on my social media, and I posted it in a few local community groups, especially the ones for animal lovers. I attached the audio file, just the raw, unedited clip of her saying, "I solved the dog problem so you could have your life back." The reaction was nuclear and instantaneous. Remember, my mum is a social person. She's in that book club. She's in a gardening club. She's friends with half the neighbourhood, and a huge number of these people are dog people, cat people, animal people. They saw the story. They heard her calm, cold voice admitting what she did. The comments exploded. People were horrified. They were furious. They were tagging each other, saying, "I can't believe we know this woman." Her friends started calling her, texting her, demanding an explanation. She tried to play the victim, I heard, saying her own child had betrayed her. But it didn't work. Nobody was on her side. How could they be? They had heard the proof. Her social life evaporated overnight. The book club asked her not to come back. The gardening club quietly removed her from the group chat. Neighbours who used to stop and chat with her on their walks would now cross the street to avoid her. She became a pariah, a social ghost, the one person in town known as the woman who tried to get rid of her own child's dog. The isolation was the justice. There was no yelling, no big dramatic fight. It was just silence. The consequences of her own actions reflected back at her by everyone she knew. And here's the positive twist I never saw coming. The story didn't just stay in my local town. Someone shared it on a bigger subreddit. Then it got picked up by one of those feel-good news sites that cover stories about animals. It went mildly viral. People were so invested in Bailey's story. And in the comments, someone started a movement. They found the website for the shelter in Rockville, the one that took care of Bailey and was so kind to me. Someone set up a small fundraiser for them. "Donate $5 for Bailey," the post said. It was just a silly little thing. But it caught on. People started donating. $5, $10, $20. They shared the fundraiser. Within a week, that shelter had received over $15,000 in donations from people all over the country who had heard our story. That money helped them save other dogs, cats, animals who were actually lost or abandoned. It funded medical care and food and new kennels. My horrible experience, because of the kindness of strangers, ended up creating a genuinely happy ending for so many other animals. It turned the whole terrible thing into something beautiful. So what's the point of all this? What's the moral? It's simple, and I learned it the hard way. A person's character isn't defined by how they treat their equals or their superiors. It's defined by how they treat those who are vulnerable, those who can't fight back. Someone who is capable of that kind of cruelty to an innocent animal. Someone who can lie so easily to someone who trusts them completely. That's who they really are. The mask they wear for the rest of the world is just that, a mask. And eventually it always slips. I'm just glad I was there to catch it when it did. Maybe you have a story like this too. Maybe you've seen that mask slip on someone you thought you knew. If you want to hear more stories where the quiet ones finally get a voice, you should watch the next video.